Samuel Edgar Langford, known as the Boston Tar Baby, Boston Terror, and Boston Bonecrusher, was a Canadian boxing standout of the early part of the 20th century. Called the greatest fighter nobody knows, by ESPN, Langford is considered by many boxing historians to be one of the greatest fighters of all time. Originally from Weymouth Falls, a small community in Nova Scotia, he was known as the Boston Bonecrusher, the Boston Terror, and his most famous nickname, the Boston Tar Baby. Langford stood 5 feet 6 plus half in, 1.69 meters, and weighed 185 pounds, 84 kilograms, in his prime. He fought from lightweight to heavyweight, and defeated many world champions, and legends of the time in each weight class. Considered a devastating puncher even at heavyweight, Langford was rated No. 2 by The Ring on their list of 100 greatest punchers of all time. One boxing historian described Langford as experienced as a heavyweight James Toney with the punching power of Mike Tyson. He was denied a shot at many world championships, due to the color bar, and by the refusal of Jack Johnson, the first African-American world heavyweight champion, to fight him in a rematch. Langford was the world colored heavyweight champion, a title vacated by Johnson after he won the world championship, a record 5 times. Alongside this, Langford also defeated the reigning lightweight champion Joe Gans, the first African-American world champion in boxing history, and widely regarded as one of the greatest boxers of all time, in an untitled bout. Many boxing aficionados consider Langford to be the greatest boxer not to have won a world title. On August 13, 2020, the WBC granted Langford to be an honorary world champion. BoxRec ranks him as the 22nd greatest Canadian boxer of all time. Born in Nova Scotia, his grandfather was a former slave from the USA who helped settle Weymouth Falls. Langford left home as a youth to escape an abusive father. He made his way to Boston where he eventually found work as a janitor in a boxing gymnasium at the Lenox Athletic Club. Not long after he started working he was sparring, and improving his own boxing skills. He won the amateur featherweight championship of Boston at age 15. Langford was a boxer who fought greats from the lightweight division right up to the heavyweights, beating many champions in the process. However, he was never able to secure a world title for himself. Despite the fact, Langford never received a chance to fight for Jack Johnson's heavyweight title. Ring Magazine founder Nat Fleischer rated Langford as one of the 10 best heavyweights of all time. Renowned champion Jack Dempsey claimed that as a young boxer in 1916 he refused a fight with Langford. According to Dempsey, "I think Sam Langford was the greatest fighter we ever had." Langford's most memorable fights were his numerous encounters against fellow black boxers Sam McVeigh, battling Jim Johnson, Joe Jeanette, and Harry Wills, who all experienced similar barriers in their fighting careers. Langford defeated world lightweight champion Joe Gans on December 8, 1903, via 15-round decision. Gans' title was not on the line, however. The two would later become good friends. Langford considered Gans the pound-for-pound greatest fighter of all time. He fought Jack Blackburn, trainer of the legendary Joe Louis, 6 times. The first 3 fights were draws, the 4th a decision win for Langford, the 5th another draw, and the 6th a no contest. Although Langford is often credited as the greatest fighter to never challenge for a world title, he fought world welterweight champion Barbados Joe Walcott on September 5, 1904, for his title. The fight resulted in a draw via decision, thus Walcott retained his title. However, reports of the fight say Langford clearly outpointed the champion. Langford kept Walcott at a distance with his longer reach, and used his footwork to evade all of Walcott's attacks. Langford landed lefts and rights to the jaw so effectively, Walcott was bleeding by round 2, and continued bleeding more after every round. Walcott was brought on one knee in the 3rd round, and the fight ended with hardly a scratch on Langford. In 1912, Langford was one of the contenders for the World Colored Heavyweight Championship fought at various venues across Australia. Sam McVeigh his opponent, McVeigh ranked alongside Jack Johnson, Joe Jeanette, Sam Langford, and Harry Wills as the top black heavyweights of their generation. Prior to his win, Langford stayed at the Nedlands Park Hotel where he gave exhibitions of punching the ball, throwing the medicine bag sparring, etc. His work was a revelation. Langford allowed his sparring partners to hit him just when and where they pleased. After witnessing his exhibition of wonderful foot and head work one could easily understand how the big little fellow came to lay low the best boxers in the world. Langford is as fast on his feet, and as graceful as a ballet dancer. He carries a punch like unto that of a kick of a mule, and is practically impervious to punishment. Dick Cullen hit him some terrific punches on the chin last Wednesday, punches that would have put the ordinary boxer away for the full count, but the Tower Baby only grinned, and shoved out his head for more. He is truly a remarkable fighter. Langford fought various contenders throughout his career. He fought welterweight young Peter Jackson 6 times, winning the first 2 by decision, the third was a draw via points, losing the fourth by technical knockout, and winning the fifth and sixth bouts again by decision. Their bout on November 12, 1907, at the Pacific Athletic Club in Los Angeles was billed as being for the World Colored Middleweight Championship, 158 pounds. Langford won the title by besting Jackson on points in the 20-round bout. Langford fought heavyweight Joe Jeanette 14 times, losing the first by 8th round retirement, winning second by decision, third and fourth were a draw via points, winning the 5th through 8th by decision, 9th was a draw via points, winning the 10th on the decision, 11th was a draw via points, lost the 12th by decision, and winning the 13th by 7th round knockout, and 14th by decision. Total, 8 wins, 1 KO, 2 losses, 1 RT, and 1 PTS, and 4 draws. He fought future world heavyweight champion Jack Johnson on April 26, 1906, losing by a 15th round decision. Johnson was 29 pounds heavier than Langford. Langford took severe punishment, and was knocked down 3 times, however, he lasted the 15-round distance. After winning their first match, Johnson repeatedly refused rematches against Langford, who was considered by some to be the most dangerous challenger for Johnson's crown, although Johnson cited Langford's inability to meet his $30,000 appearance fee. Langford fought heavyweight fireman Jim Flynn 6 times, winning the first by first-round knockout, losing the second by decision, winning the third by 8th round knockout, winning the fourth by decision, winning the fifth by 3rd round knockout, and winning the 6th by decision. Winner of the World Colored Middleweight Championship in 1907 when he beat young Peter Jackson, he fought world middleweight champion Stanley Ketchel on April 27, 1910 in a 6-round non-title fight, a no-decision draw. A longer rematch bout was rumored but never happened due to Ketchel's murder 6 months later. Langford fought heavyweight battling Jim Johnson 12 times, winning the first 3 by decision, 4th and 5th were a draw via points, winning the 6th and 7th on points, 8th by 12th round knockout, 9th through 11th by points, and drawing in the 12th via points. Total, 9 wins, 1 KO, 0 losses, and 3 draws. Johnson was always heavier than Langford by 26 to 40 pounds. Langford fought heavyweight Sam McVee 15 times, drawing in the first via points, losing the second by decision, winning the third and fourth by decision, winning the 5th by technical knockout. McVee claimed a foul. This was not allowed, and he refused to continue, winning the 6th by 13th round knockout. 7th was a draw via points, losing the 8th by decision. 9th through 11th were draws via points, winning the 12th by decision. 13th and 14th were draws via decision, and winning the 15th by decision. Total, 6 wins, 2 KO, 2 losses, 0 KO, and 7 draws. Langford was 37 years old in the final bout. Langford defeated former world light heavyweight champion Philadelphia Jack O'Brien on August 15, 1911, by 5th round technical knockout. Langford outweighed O'Brien by 10 pounds. The fight was stopped after a hard left hook put O'Brien on the canvas. O'Brien had to be helped to his corner. The poetic O'Brien later said of Langford, when he appeared upon the scene of combat, "You knew you were cooked." Langford fought heavyweight Gunboat Smith twice, losing the first by decision. Many ringsiders were surprised, and winning the second by 3rd round knockout. Langford fought heavyweight Harry Wills 17 times. Langford was 31 in the first bout, and continued to suffer from old age, and failing eyesight more and more each fight. The first was a draw via points, the second a win via 14th round knockout, the third and fourth losses via decision, the fifth a win via 19th round knockout, the 6th through 9th losses via decision, the 10th a draw via points, the 11th a loss via 6th round knockout, and the 12th by 7th round technical knockout, the 13th through 17th by decision. Total, 2 wins, 2 KO, 14 losses, 2 KO, and 2 draws. Former world heavyweight champion Tommy Burns was a referee in the third fight. At the end, he caught Langford's hand, and said to him, "Sam, this is the hardest I ever had to do in my life. I always admired you, and never thought to see you beaten, but I have to give the decision against you." Although Langford is often credited as the greatest fighter to never challenge for a world title, He fought world welterweight champion Barbados Joe Walcott, a black man, on September 5, 1904, at Lake Massabesic Coliseum in Manchester, New Hampshire for his title. Both fighters weighed in at 142 pounds. The fight resulted in a draw via decision, thus Walcott retained his title. However, reports of the fight say Langford clearly outpointed the champion. Langford kept Walcott at a distance with his longer reach, and used his footwork to evade all of Walcott's attacks. Langford landed lefts and rights to the jaw so effectively, Walcott was bleeding by round 2, and continued bleeding more after every round. Walcott was brought on one knee in the third round, and the fight ended with hardly a scratch on Langford. The Lowell Sun newspaper reported, Joe Walcott met his match in a 15-round bout yesterday afternoon in the Massabesic Coliseum before a crowd of 1,200. His opponent was Sam Langford, who clearly outpointed the champion, and the latter's aggressiveness in carrying the fight to Langford was all that saved him from making a decision that would have given him the short end of the purse. Langford took advantage of his longer reach, and repeatedly played a tattoo on Walcott's face, and his cleverness on his feet carried him away from, unreadable, a score or more times when Walcott endeavored by sheer brute force to deliver a knockout blow. While Walcott was the aggressor, Langford met his attacks by rights and lefts to the jaw and mouth so effectively as to draw blood in the second round, and he kept Walcott bleeding in every round thereafter. In the third round, Langford brought the champion to one knee by a straightaway jolt to the jaw, and he went through the entire 15 rounds without a perceptible scratch on himself. In the opening round honors were even, but thereafter until the 7th round Langford had all the better of the argument. Sam Langford won the World Colored Heavyweight Championship a record 5 times between 1910 and 1918. Jack Johnson had reigned as the World Colored Heavyweight Champion from 1903 to 1908, when he relinquished the title after winning the World Heavyweight Championship. Joe Jeanette and Sam McVeigh fought in Paris in February 1909 to fill the vacant title, with McVeigh the victor. Jeanette took the title away from McVeigh 2 months later. Subsequently, Langford claimed the title during Jeanette's reign after Johnson refused to defend the World Heavyweight Championship against him. For a year there were 2 dueling claimants to the World Colored Heavyweight crown, Jeanette, the official champ, and Langford, the pretender, the man whom Jack Johnson ducked. On September 6, 1910, in Boston, Massachusetts, Langford became the undisputed colored champ by winning a 15-round bout with Jeanette on points. Still, Jack Johnson refused to give him a title shot. Langford had lost to Jack Johnson the only time they had fought, on April 26, 1906, in a 15-round decision. Johnson was 29 pounds heavier than Langford, and though he knocked down Langford in the 6th round, many spectators felt Langford had won the bout, even though Sam was on the verge of going down several times only for Johnson to hold him up and prevent a knockdown. In truth, Johnson actually toyed with him, carrying on conversations with ringsiders all through the fight. After winning their first match, Johnson repeatedly refused rematches against Langford, who was considered by some to be the most dangerous challenger for Johnson's crown. Another explanation for this Johnson's refusal is that he knew that a fight between 2 black fighters would not generate nearly as much revenue as a fight between him and a white man. Battling Jim Johnson, the man Sam fought 12 times, beating Johnson 9 times, and never losing once, would be the one who got the title shot against Johnson that Langford had rightly believed his. Ironically, the color bar that had marred the World Heavyweight title by blackballing boxers of color remained in force even under Jack Johnson. Once he was the world's heavyweight champion, Johnson did not fight a black opponent for the first 5 years of his reign. In addition to Langford, he denied matches to black heavyweights Joe Jeanette, and to the young Harry Wills, who was colored heavyweight champion during the last year of Johnson's reign as world heavyweight champion. Blacks were not given a shot at the title allegedly because Johnson felt that he could make more money fighting white boxers. In August 1913, as Johnson neared the end of his troubled reign as world heavyweight champion, there were rumors that he had agreed to fight Langford in Paris for the title, but it came to naught. Johnson claimed that Langford was unable to raise $30,000, equivalent to approximately $811,595 in today's funds, for his guarantee. Because black boxers with the exception of Johnson had been barred from fighting for the heavyweight championship because of racism, Johnson's refusal to fight African Americans offended the African American community, since the opportunity to fight top white boxers was rare. Jeanette criticized Johnson, saying, "Jack forgot about his old friends after he became champion, and drew the color line against his own people. When Johnson finally did agree to take on a black opponent in late 1913, it was not Sam Langford, the current colored heavyweight champion, that he gave the title shot to. Instead, Johnson chose battling Jim Johnson, a mediocrity who, in 1910, had lost to Langford, and had a draw, and loss via knockout to Sam McVeigh, another former colored champion. Battling Jim fought fellow former colored champion Joe Jeanette 4 times between July 19, 1912, and January 21, 1912, and lost all 4 fights. The only fighter of note he did beat in that period was future colored champion Big Bill Tate, whom he knocked out in the second round of a scheduled 10-round bout. It was Tate's third pro fight. The fight, scheduled for 10 rounds, was held on December 19, 1913, in Paris. It was the first time in history that 2 blacks had fought for the World Heavyweight Championship. While the Johnson v. Johnson fight had been billed as a World Heavyweight title match, in many ways, it resembled an exhibition. A sports writer from the Indianapolis Star reported that the fight crowd became unruly when it was apparent that neither boxer was putting up a fight. The champ barely engaged battling Jim, and it turned out he had broken his arm during the 3rd round, a distinct disadvantage that battling Jim failed to capitalize on. The fight was a draw, and Jack Johnson kept his championship. Battling Jim's next fight, 4 months later, also was a title match. On March 27, 1914, in New York City, Sam Langford won a newspaper decision in a 10-rounder with Johnson. According to the New York Times, the colored champ won by a wide margin because Johnson failed to show anything remotely resembling championship ability. Battling Jim fought Langford 10 more times, including 2 more colored title matches. 2 of the fights were draws, including their last fight on September 22, 1918, which was also battling Jim's last pro bout. He faced Joe Jeanette 5 more times, and did not win a single contest. 2 of their fights were draws, and their last fight on August 20, 1918, battling Jim's penultimate pro fight, was a no decision. Of the other former, and future colored heavyweight champions that battling Jim battled, he won only 1 fight, against Harry Wills, because he broke his wrist blocking a punch in a non-title match, and Johnson won by a technical knockout. Battling Jim lost his other 2 fights with Wills, and lost all of the 5 fights he had with ex-champ Sam McVeigh in the post-Jack Johnson title shot period. Battling Jim, who died during Spanish influenza epidemic of 1918, ended with a career record of 30 wins against 31 losses, and 6 draws when his newspaper decisions are factored in. Looking at his dismal performance with the top black heavyweights of his era, and his inability to best a one-arm Jack Johnson, battling Jim Johnson cannot be considered a top contender of his era or a worthy opponent when Jack awarded him the sole title shot given to a black heavyweight from 1908 to 1937. Fittingly, he was scheduled to fight Langford before he died. In 1915, Jack Johnson lost his title to Jess Willard, the last in a long line of great white hopes. Because of the animosity he had generated combined with the virulent racism of the period, it would be 22 years before another African American, Joe Louis, was given a shot at the heavyweight title. When it was in his power to give an African American a title shot, Jack Johnson refused to grant that privilege to Sam Langford, the fighter who after former champ Jim Jeffries, a man Langford said he would not face when Jeff was in the prime of his career, had to be considered the No. 1 contender in the heavyweight division. Johnson beat Jeffries but ducked Langford, likely as he feared losing his title. Many people consider the failure of Langford to secure a shot at the heavyweight title one of the greatest injustices of American sports. Langford fought heavyweight Fred Fulton twice, losing the first by 7th round technical knockout, and the second by a 4-round decision. Langford was 34, and 35 in each respective fight. Langford was much heavier, yet much shorter than Fulton. On June 5, 1922, Langford knocked out Tiger Flowers in only the 2nd round. Langford was mostly blind, and Flowers would soon afterwards win the World Middleweight Championship. In 1923, Sam Langford fought, and won boxing's last fight to the finish for the Mexican heavyweight title. His last fight was in 1926, when his failing eyesight finally forced him to retire. Langford was 43 years old, and completely blind. Films exist of Langford fighting fireman Jim Flynn, and Bill Lang. One story characterizing his career involved Langford in a bout where he had been ordered not to throw any knockout punches until after the 7th round. So walking out for the 8th round, after 21 minutes of patting away, Langford touched gloves with his opponent. "What's the matter, Sam? It ain't the last round," said his mystified opponent. "'Tis for you, son," said Langford, who promptly knocked his opponent out. Another story involves Langford at a fight where just before it began he apologized to the audience, and said he would have to make it a quick fight as he had a train to catch very soon. He then knocked out his opponent within the first round, apologized to the audience once again, and left, just in time to catch his train. Langford eventually went completely blind, and ended up penniless, living in Harlem, New York City. In 1944, a newspaper column was published about his plight, after which close to $10,000 was donated by fans to help Langford. The column was titled "A Dark Man Laughs," and it was written by Al Laney of the New York Herald Tribune. Eventually, funding was obtained to pay for successful eye surgery. Langford was enshrined in the Ring Boxing Hall of Fame, and Canada's Sports Hall of Fame in 1955. He died a year later in Cambridge, Massachusetts, where he had been living in a private nursing home. In 1999, Langford was voted Nova Scotia's top male athlete of the 20th century. In 2013, the jazz trio Tar Baby released a CD entitled Ballad of Sam Langford. In 2018, Langford was ranked 5th in a selection of the greatest 15 athletes in Nova Scotia's history. All information in this section is derived from BoxRec, unless otherwise stated. Langford has a professional record of 314 fights, with 210 wins, 43 losses, 53 draws, and 8 no contests.